oh, this is my printmaking research sketchbook. Why should you look at this if you're a painting lecturer? Well, you should, because it informed my art this year. You might not want to, I know, but you should. It's good. Anyway, here we are. Same thing applies. I probably filled in the right hand side now, back to the left. Or sometimes I've got things on the left and then I overlay it with new stuff. So this is actually a Japanese print. This is actually a picture that I took of a sunset and I chopped it up. And again, I'm trying to think about what I do with my printmaking, which might infuriate you if you're a printmaker. I don't know. I hope it doesn't, because actually I really love printmaking and it's been really emotional, as I've explained in my digital submission, from a physical point of view, but also emotionally, because you have to realise your own disabilities and your own limitations, and that's, you know, it's quite hard really. But this page is quite fascinating. The sheep and cows here. No, the sheep and cows here. I'm overlaying something. This is a Japanese print, a mug hanger print, 200 years old. I think I've written his name there, but I've obviously peeled it off. But why I put him there is that I think I got an idea that Japanese artwork was quite staid and kitchen and what have you 200 years ago, but it wasn't. There was a lot of well, I knew that there was a lot of political impetus in it, and that's why the woodcut artists were actually banned in the end in the 1870s, because they were a force for political change and opposition. And of course, obviously in the 1870s they got rid of the samurai, and all sorts of things happened. What this is here, this is my back garden, and I can't see the view now because I've got this up, which I hate. But I've got this up because it's next to where the holiday home are, and they come in with their COVID, coughing and spluttering, and I have to put a tarpaulin in between them and me if I sit on my deck chair. I hate this. So there's a bit of a protest going on. Bit of Barbara Hepworth here. She appears in all the sketchbooks. This is me writing about how awful lino was for me to start off with. I couldn't understand, and a lot of what happened in lino was me really just not being able to physically do things. And what I couldn't understand is why I could do it last year but I couldn't do it this year. And then it wasn't until I got to make mince pies at Christmas where I realised I couldn't roll things out with my right arm, and actually my mobility in my right arm's got worse over a year, and it's obviously going to continue to get worse. So it's awful in one way, but it's really good in another, because it means that I can say, oh, I can't do that now, I'll do something else, I'll go and do something else. So that's great. This is Ian Thompson. Quite interesting when I'm giving this talk about what you can and you can't do. Ian Thompson works up the road, and I know a lot about Ian Thompson now because he's the friend of my neighbour. I'm looking at his house through the window now as I'm talking, and he works in a big workshop, and his work is beautiful, isn't it? He works in a big workshop. He has a team that print for him. He prints with them, but he, the ink up and do everything for him under his direction, because he does his massive, beautiful prints. And these are CAD/CAM designed and cut out by machine, which is great. And all of that would be fantastic for somebody with a disability. I really don't want to do it. I want to cut things out. I want to still be tactile. I want to still use my hands and do things. I don't know if I'll always be able to do that, but I still want to do that. So I still, lovely, I don't want to do it. Okay, so this is Sarah Ross Thompson, and these are all the addresses of all the galleries that she sells at. And this is Coleograph, and I really quite like this, and I haven't done any of this, and I still haven't done any of this, and I've looked at Ross Thompson's work for 2 years now, and I've talked to her and things like that, and I don't know why I don't want to do it. I think one of the reasons I don't want to do it is if I do it and it looks crap, I won't be really unhappy. It's odd, isn't it? But anyway, she's really interesting from a compositional point of view. She's interesting from a personal point of view and how she markets her work. I will never be able to do this. And I think that, I realised that this year, the track mile she puts into galleries and so on and so forth. So that's a bit of a worry because I'm not going to be able to sell like that. So if I can't get online marketing, I'm knackered. I think that's the truth. That's if I ever make a living at this. Maybe I never will make a living at this, but I don't know. Here we are. This is John Cage and his pebbles. They're musical notes, and I love John Cage. And it appears this is an ink sketch I did. This is Picasso's Guernica because this is Mark's, and I use these as pebbles as well. That's odd. But anyway, so that's what that's doing there. As you can see, more pebbles. Dorothy, I can't pronounce that, Veronica, so if you're watching this, please forgive me, I'm not even going to try to. And I love her lines. She's an Aboriginal artist and just wonderful. I love her work and the lines. And I talked about the lines, both lines, the county lines, drug dealers, both. But I love that feeling as well. So, I think that's got to come in. Frank Holbrook is really big for me. I really loved him from last year. He's up here, Frank. Can you see Frank? It's all a bit scruffy, I guess. But what I really liked about his layers. Layers are really important to me because there's layers of interest, layers of personality, layers of doing. I love layers. So that's going to appear. I have no idea why that piece of seaweed's there, but it looks great. Anyway. Hepworth, Barbara Hepworth, love her. There's Nicholson, obviously, the other half. I love these shapes. Again, we're back to the line work. I have no idea where I'm going with this in the printmaking, but I really feel that I'm going there at some stage. This was a piece I did last year on a huge piece of recycled paper, A1 size, and it was like cardboard. But I really love that. How that's going to go to printmaking, maybe etching. I really liked the etching. You know, they're going to be tiny, aren't they? That's because I've only got a little press. I don't know what's going to happen. More shapes, more people. Keith Vaughan comes into here. Yeah. So you can see what's happening here. This is the wave. This is, I'm talking about the sea. I'm talking about Borth. This is what is influential to me in my artistic practice, is where I live. So all sorts of artists I'm looking at here. This was from the exercise in class when we got the collection out. I like Jenny Martin's work, I think because it reminded me of time in India. And I spent about 5 years on and off going to India once a month when I was flying, because nobody else wants to do it. So it's a challenging place. And then I took one of my holidays and I rode a motorbike through India. A long time ago, but it was interesting. And so that's the sort of India that I think of. It's still there, sort of, but I don't, you know, India now is got all sorts of political turmoil, big silicon industries there, computing, all that. It's not this, but this is the India that I remember, so I quite like that. I contacted Jenny, but she was one of the printmakers that didn't get back to me. Most printmakers actually got back to me, and I could have a discussion with them, ask and things about the process, which was really useful, but she didn't, so she might be very busy. I'll just think, oh, I'm not talking to you. I don't know. Anyway, this is faces and masks. I suppose this was probably the start of the swimmer, and you know all about the swimmer if you've seen the other bits and pieces. And this is my friend Helen, and Helen died just before I went to university. She was why I came here, because she said never put anything off. If you can do it, don't put it off. So that's why I'm here. That's what all that's about. Railway posters. I like the railway. Obviously, I'm a bit autistic and a bit OCD, and anybody that is probably loves the railways. I love the railways. I love the big machines. I'd like to drive a steam engine. Do you drive a steam engine? I love them. And I want to talk about the tourists, obviously, and how they came to Borth. And I know the history of Borth, and there's lots of history written about Bath, and of course the railway coming really changed it, and my house was one of the first houses here in Bath, and I've got all the history of my house, and it didn't have any water when the railway came, because the tracks first of all cut off water to the poor parts of the village. And sometimes, you know, and obviously they must have been really pissed off when that happened. You know, it must have been terrible. 20 years they didn't have water, and it must have been just awful. And it was for sanitation and what have you. And the effect of all the tourists coming on the train must have been really difficult. And of course, we've experienced a bit of that these last couple of summers. Ansel Kiefer, I really like his work. Again, I can see this happening with my Storm Bath, which, you know, is in process really, but a lot of the monoprints I think have his quality, so you can see why I like that. These are the Bath lines, which you know all about. This lady was really good, Marcel Hans Flair. I'm really rubbish at pronouncing stuff. And what was really interesting is it's under etching and aquatint, but when I talked to her, she said no, these were all lithography prints, and you know, fairly early on when she was doing lithography. So that was fascinating. She was really helpful to talk to. I can see why you like lithography, Veronica, and I really wish I could lug them bits of stone about, but it's never happening. But it's beautiful, lovely. So, railway print. I both designed this on my iPad. I can sit up for 4 hours a day and I can do things. So I can sit, I can stand, I can do something for 4 hours a day. After that, I get adhesions on the bows because I'm missing bits and pieces inside, and so I have to lie flat. So a lot of the work I do, like if I read or if I'm doing any digital work, I have to do it sort of lying. It's sort of like in a recliner, but it stretches out me insides, and yeah, so that's what's happening here. This is me talking about colour values and all that sort of thing, trying to figure that out, which I really love. More digital design, different artists now. Gertrude Hermes was quite interesting. Again, I love this fine detail. I like this dichotomy, I think, where I like this really messy, powerful, dynamic art, and then I like this real detailed stuff. And I sort of tried to combine those two things by letting the sort of dynamic art and what have you come out in aspects of the work this semester, but needing to do some detail work. That sort of, I think you can see that anyway. So that's what all that's about. This is me cutting up stuff. This is me cutting up Kutka, which I always feel guilty about, but how things relate. What happens when you don't make that line even, and how do you feel about it, and the tension that putting two pieces like that give, and what overlap, and do you want the tension, and what's happening. This is me detailing all the nonsense that happened in Milano, which was a nightmare. Look, you know, glue coming through because I've not sanded it down enough. I sanded it, but I realised that when I sanded the lino, obviously I used my right arm. And if I'm putting pressure on my right arm and all that's happening is my shoulder moving, maybe I didn't really sand it much. I think I didn't sand it much, but I didn't know that then. I just got really frustrated. I made this beautiful setup to put all my print in it. Oh, it was lovely. Look, the turns, pins, and registration jig. It was lovely. And then, of course, I went to try and use it on the big press in the School of Art. And it's made of corrugated plastic. Well, of course, corrugated plastic isn't going to stand up against the pressure of a press. And it all moved. God, I'm an idiot. Anyway, I used it for the hand printing and eventually hand printed this, because obviously I couldn't use the press either, because I tried to use it with my arm and I'm sure the press stayed there in my arm. Just didn't. Anyway, Anna Hock. Love Anna Hock. Really interesting during art history, because I tried to combine my three things this year, which was art history, printmaking and painting. How in the lecture they say, no, you know, it's sort of random stuff, and it's not random at all. She's trying to talk about feminism, and there's a bearing, and the bearing's coming apart, you know, what's happening in society. So actually there was nothing random, I don't think, about Dada. They always add you believe, you know, they stood there and did their Dada portrait and it was just random, but it wasn't random at all. It was all a political statement. How could you not know that? So this is me cutting up Hannah as well. So I'm into these slices, I guess, and the eyes again. Here's Max Beckerman. He appears in all sorts of sketchbooks. And this woman's quite interesting. She's a modern mocha hanger artist. I put her in if I'm getting too depressed with all this stuff, because she's quite happy. I don't know her name. She'll appear later on. I'll tell you her name then. So, yeah. This artist is really interesting. She sells a lot of stuff. I think it's a interesting thing for me, because in my head I think I'm going to retire from tattooing and then make a living as an artist. I'm not sure that's possible at the moment. I don't know. Maybe that's not important. Maybe I just keep going with the tattooing as long as I can, then just retire. I don't know. I just use the art. I just enjoy the art. Let you know about that. I do like maps though, and obviously maps appeared in my artwork, but she's very commercial. I don't know if I want to make this though, so I don't know what I think about that. Oh, hang on, I missed one. Here we are. Eric Gaskell. You'll know Eric Gaskell. I really like Eric Gaskell, and I'll tell you why I like him, because of his prints. They're a bit 1970s, his prints in patterns, so maybe I have some sort of love of those shapes. Maybe they remind me of my childhood or whatever. But I could see myself doing that. I could see myself making relief prints and using them within the collage, making intaglio prints and using them within the collage, but patterns, making patterns and then cutting them up. I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like him. There you go. Obviously he's making all this in one and making it on a big scale, whereas I'm going to make things this sort of size on my little press. But then I could put those together, make bigger pieces. I don't know. Here we are. This is the swimmer. This is Sad Olive. There's the story of Sad Olive. She was kidnapped by indigenous tribes in North America in the middle of the 1850s. But she appears in a lot of tattooing things because she was tattooed by them, and then she became a tattoo sideshow. But she always looks so damn miserable. Well, maybe you would have been miserable if you'd been kidnapped by people and forcibly tattooed. But she made good living as a sideshow lady. So Sad Olive comes into it. Obviously there's a suicide bit going in as well, but you can read all about that. And then you get interesting things like this is a New Zealand print company mixture for etching solutions, aluminium and zinc. Interesting, on the zinc one they put salt in, and as Adru said, well, that would give you a degradation of the quality of line on the zinc, so you don't need it. Interesting. Anyway, I love all that material technology. Great. So that's that. And this is a picture that I did in summer, which really was the start of the swimmers. Obviously this is all my process, talking about coffee lift. It's a happy moment. It's a happy mocha hanger moment here as well. Just cheer me up. Talking about all the different things. And this was really good because I can look back on this, and memory is really important, because I think the older you get, memory gets worse, and obviously my mother had Alzheimer's, so I often think about that. I think I'm all there at the moment, but I do think about that, and being able to record processes is really important to me. So I look back and go, oh yeah, I remember what I did there. So that's what all this is about. And I have arguments with myself as well about what I should be doing. Should you have done that? So here we are. This is, you can see what artwork this is doing, and the poem Suicide Note by Langston Hughes comes into several artworks. That sounds really morbid. I'm a really happy person, actually. So there we go. So, and I'm talking about writing another poem for Both Storm, which I haven't made yet, and it's going to be in. I've made the poem, but I haven't made it, and I'm going to use a lot of the dark pieces, mono prints, intaglio prints, all sorts of things in that picture. You can see that. I think it's section 3. It's in. Again, more recipes, spit bite and all that sort of thing, and what you do with the icing sugar aquatint, which I did a really good icing sugar aquatint. I was really proud of that. And I found that easy, and it made a lovely plate for the swimmer, and I'll be doing more of that. I really like big, something I can do. Great. Oh, here she is, Little Skin Pictures. This, she's called, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pronounce this, Sakia Kuama. Anyway, she's from Japan. She's doing modern mocha hanger. And why I call it Little Skin Pictures is one of my friends who talks about tattoo history, and I do lectures on tattoo history. He says, you know, don't get all upset about tattooing, it's only little skin pictures. And they just remind me of that. They're just really happy, and I just really like it. Here I am, more notes on printmaking, interspersed with all this artist research. God, I love Mezzotint prints. Aren't they beautiful? I don't know if I ever get that sort of darkness with a faux aquatint with a tiny press. I think you can, obviously, with a big press. I don't know, but I love them. This is modern stuff. Japanese Mezzotints. Who knew? There you go. So this is Richard William Hamilton, famous collage artist, with how to do a hard ground as well. So that's quite interesting. I quite like that. I quite like mixing things up, because I need to go back to look at this, say, when I'm looking at it, because my sketchbook's a really practical thing. So I go back to look at this, but then I might get some inspiration for something. So I quite like putting things in between, if that makes sense. Yeah, just what is it that makes today's homes so different, so appealing? Well, oh, I'm chopping things up now. Poor old Patty over there's getting chopped up. I really like her stuff. She won the Aguami paper printmaking competition this year, and really interesting what she's doing with these bits here. Are not mocha hanger. These obviously just digital work that she's done to prepare for the mocha hanger. So this is wood cut. I mean, obviously it's massive, so that's why it looks really fine detailed. She's cut up here because, again, I'm thinking about cutting up prints. So that's what's happening here. It's me thinking. And again, how I cut up prints. So this is another artist, which I've got the name of, which is typical. But it wasn't really important, I don't think. And I made a collage of his work. Oh, this is One Designs. You know, write that in now. Look. Works in Colchester. I remembered. But it's what I'm going to do with it. These are dry point etchings. So he's making dry point etchings and making these prints, and he's making a living out of it. Looks great, actually. His stuff looks great. I think he's using machines to make these circles. In fact, I'm sure he is. So because you can see some of his plates in his on his website and what have you, and it looks like he's using some sort of machinery to make these straight lines, and especially the circles. I don't know if I particularly want to do that. Again, I quite like that hand thing. But what I found interesting was the patterning and the repeat patterning and how I layer it. And I think if you look at the pieces that I've done for this semester, you see that there's lots of patterns in there. There's even Morse code in some of it, which is definitely a pattern. And what I do with it. But this weaving here, which I don't know if you can see, this is really what I want to do next semester. I want to take prints, I want to make patterns, I want to make organic patterns, and then I want to bring them together. And I want to weave them together, and that's what's happening here. Wish me luck. That's it.